leadership that said, look, let's not give him a victory, and maybe we can have a replay of 1993-94 when Clinton came in. He failed on health care, and then we won in the midterm elections, and we got the majority.
Is that what's going on here?
No, I hope not. It may be with some, but I don't think so with the majority of the Republican Party. I look at this as an opportunity right now. The president's numbers are falling about their Americans' confidence in his ability to address this issue and how he's addressing it. Now, wouldn't it be a good idea for us Republicans and Democrats to sit down with the president? The president has not come forward with a plan of his own, as you know. There's plans in the House and the Senate, but not from the administration.
He met with the group of bipartisan negotiators on the Senate Finance Committee.
But now the time, I think, is to come with the leadership and with others, at least try to sit down and see. There are so many areas that we are in agreement on. All of us agree that health care costs are out of control, and we have to bring them under control. So maybe it would be a good idea for us to sit down, and after consultation and agreement, the president could say, here's the health care plan that I want passed through the Congress. At least...
So you're saying start fresh?
Well, at least sit down. Well, through this debate, at least we know what we agree on. We know we need more competition. We know we need more accessibility. We know we've got to provide an opportunity for every American to acquire health insurance.
Would you agree to the kind of insurance reforms the president is talking about, that you can't be denied health insurance for a pre-existing condition? You can't lose it if you get sick.
You can't be denied it. And certainly if you have it, you shouldn't have to lose it. But under the president's plan, you would have to lose it, in my view, because of the government option. I believe that one of the fundamentals for any agreement would be that the president abandon the government option.
No public health insurance option.
Yeah, the public option. I think he'd have to abandon the public option, and that, I think, is what a lot of Americans are concerned about.
If he does, you're willing to sit down and talk about insurance reforms and agree to that?
I think that Republicans are more than agreeable to sit down and talk about various reforms.
The president also says that the debate has been infected by falsehoods. And probably the most notorious one is the one made by your former running mate, Sarah Palin, who said that his bill would encourage death panels that would encourage euthanasia. He called that an extraordinary lie, and he is right about that, isn't he?
Well, I think that what we are talking about here is, are we going to have groups that actually advise people as these decisions are made later in life?
That's not in the bill.
But it's been taken out. But the way that it was written made it a little bit ambiguous. And another thing,
I don't think that's correct, Senator. The bill, all it said was that if a patient wanted to have a Medicare consultation about end-of-life issues, they could have it at their request, and the doctor would get reimbursed for it. No panel.
But there was a provision in the bill that talks about a board that would decide the most effective measures to provide health care for people, okay? Now, we had amendments, we Republicans, have said that in no way would that affect the decisions that the patients would make and their families. That was rejected by the Democrats in the Health Committee. So what does that lead to? Doesn't that lead to a possibility, at least opens the door to a possibility of rationing and decisions made, such are made in other countries?
Boy, every single independent group that looked at it said it just wasn't true.
Well, then why did the Democrats turn down our amendments that clarified that none of the decisions that would be made by this board would in any way affect the depriving of the needed treatments for patients? I don't know why they did that then.
So you think Sarah Palin was right?
Oh, look, I don't think they were, quote, death panels. Don't get me wrong. I don't think. But on the best treatment procedures, part of the bill, it does open it up to decisions being made that should be left, those choices left to the patient and the individual. That's what I think is pretty clear, which was a different section of the bill.
You have worked a lot with Senator Kennedy on immigration and other matters. How much of a difference has it made that he hasn't been part of this debate? Huge difference. No person in that institution is indispensable. But Ted Kennedy comes as close to being indispensable as any individual I've ever known in the Senate, because he had a unique way of sitting down with the parties at a table and making the right concessions, which really are the essence of successful negotiations. So
It's huge that he's absent, not only because of my personal affection for him, but because I think that healthcare reform might be in a very different place today.
You talked about working with the president now on health care. On election night, you promised to work with the president.
I urge all Americans who supported me to join me in not just congratulating him, but offering our next president our goodwill and earnest effort to find ways to come together, to find the necessary compromises, to bridge our differences.
Yet I was struck this week, Congressional Quarterly came out with a study of your voting record, and it said your voting record this year is the most partisan of your entire Senate career.
Well, I think it's probably been some of the issues. I did work with the president on reform of defense weapons acquisition. I've worked with him on other defense issues. I have supported him on Iraq and Afghanistan. I have on a number of other national security issues we have worked together, and there are other areas where we have simply disagreed.
On just about every major domestic issue, and on Guantanamo, even though you say it should be closed, you've been quite critical of the president.
Well, let me just say on spending in the stimulus, I think the major reason why the administration is having difficulty today is because of the out-of-control, unheard-of deficit that we're running, which then gives people pause about another $1 trillion that would have to be spent to reform health care in America. On Guantanamo, I share the same goal, but I would, again, they have not had an overall policy developed, which should have come first. And that, I think, has caused some difficulty.
I talk to people in the administration, and they say, wait a second, John McCain even voted against Secretary Sebelius for Health and Human Services Secretary, Justice Sotomayor.
Well, all I can say is that I use my best judgment. I consider myself the loyal opposition, and that is loyal to the president where I can be, and in opposition where we have fundamental disagreements. And I look forward to working with the president on a number of issues, and I will continue to try to do so.
Let me bring up one of them. You just talked about the deficit. You just learned today the administration saying that over the next 10 years, the deficit will be $2 trillion higher than they thought, $9 trillion. I spoke with Treasury Secretary Geithner just a couple of weeks ago, and he pledged that this administration would do whatever it takes to get that deficit down over the long run, including new revenues. Can you make that same pledge?
No. First, we have to send a message to the American people that we're serious. The earmark and pork barrel spending, and when we're talking about earmarks, only a few $1 million.
That's a tiny fraction.
It's a tiny fraction, but it's a signal of how serious we are. And when you say it's a tiny fraction, remember, every time we add one of those projects, it becomes a permanent part of the budget. So it has a cumulative effect. Look, there was 9,000 of them in the omnibus bill. I mean, 9,000, and all of them became a permanent part of the budget. So we got to show the American people we're serious about tightening our belts. Then, in my view, we have to look at entitlement reform. And we all know that Social Security and Medicare are going broke. And we have to sit down together and do that. Or maybe have a same thing like a BRAC commission, Commission of Most Respected Americans, come out with a recommendation to reform Social Security and Medicare, and it's an up or down vote in Congress.
The president has said he's open to that kind of a commission as well. But even, and I think you would agree that former Fed Chair Alan Greenspan is no slouch on the deficit, has credibility on the deficit. He also says there's no way you're going to solve this problem over the long run without new revenues, probably a value-added tax.
Well, first of all, I think the value-added tax is a regressive